Welcome back to Transcendence Magnetized. I'm Stephanie Beausheur.
And I'm Kristin Pierce. Last week, we witnessed a profound mass convergence, freeing hundreds of victimized souls, including Isabella, after her heroic final act.
That battle revealed a widespread, long lived cult and a male cult leader whose negative influence extended from the early 1900s.
Crucially, Isabella gave us a landmarker, the rows of trees connected to our friend Brianna's new home. That revelation immediately expanded our mission.
Today, we are diving into the merging phase. We have our dear friend, Brianna, with us to share the eye opening historical truth she uncovered and the events that took place when she stepped into her new home.
The trees planted in those rows have much more to say and many more secrets about the land. Let the transmission begin.
Brianna, we just want to thank you so much for jumping on with us today, and thank you so much for taking your time.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Super excited that you guys wanted to be me to be a part of the show. So yeah, let's get into it. What questions do you got for me?
So, Brianna, obviously, before we get started, did you believe in the paranormal? Has your view changed since?
Oh, yeah, no. No way. Not at all. I was always super scared of it. I didn't want to believe anything of any sorts like that could ever happen. Um, and boy, did that change. Holy cow. Once I got to that house, it changed big time. And now I'm a very big believer. And so, yeah.
Wow, that's pivotal. I mean, when we have moments of awakening, it truly is a reality check. It really is something that can never leave us. Those moments are staplings in time, not just for our human reality, but also our spiritual journey, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure.
Steph, I think that's a really good way to put that with your awakening and how that comes into your reality. Brianna, can you describe what the house felt like energetically before and after you started noticing spiritual activity?
Yeah, so before I even got to the house, I was hearing stories from the owner of the house. She's my mom's best friend, so I've gotten to know her very well over the last couple of years. I've gotten to call her my second mom. She's just a part of my life and I love her dearly. And she would tell me things would happen in the house, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, of course those happened. But she would tell me stories of, lights flickering or things moving in the house. So it was just, I didn't really believe it. And then I saw the house for the first time and I was mesmerized. I immediately was super excited. And so I knew that I was carrying my excitement along with me while I was seeing it for the first time. However, I just looked at it and noticed this dark, like looming sensation over the entire property. And it took me aback for a minute. I was very cautious. I didn't know what I was thinking. I was very just, I don't want to say confused, but at the same time, I was because with all this excitement in me, I was also noticing this darkness that was in the house just by looking at it.
I suppose that would be really intimidating, stepping into the unknown of like being drawn to the house, but also feeling a sense of overwhelming by this sort of dread.
Yeah,
And I mean, of course, we obviously know that you've gone through some spiritual activity since you moved into this house. So, can I ask, can you walk us through the first week in your new home and the very first subtle spiritual activity that you had noticed?
absolutely. So, definitely within the first week, I was ignoring everything. I was making excuses for everything, but I would hear footsteps in the hallways. I would see lights turn on when there was no one turning them on. I would see them turn off when nothing was near the light switches at all. And of course, I was going to blame that on, oh, it's old electrical wires. It doesn't mean anything. There's just a short in the wires. Oh, someone must be walking around upstairs because I was not living in this house alone. And so I was always trying to come up with excuses. But one thing that I could never do is I could never lay my head down at night without my AirPods in. I could not listen to those sounds of that house creaking and like I know it's an old house and it's settling. However, it just I was scared. And the temperature would change and you would look at corners of this house and especially the one in my main living room on my main floor, you would look at the corner and it would all of a sudden look like it was looking back at you and you'd just get this cold sensation throughout your whole entire body. And even with the heat cranked up, if you were just thinking a little bit of, oh well, what could that be, you'd get this instant cold rush. And just it always felt like there was something in my peripheral vision, always something watching me, always something trying to make itself known, however, never really getting there.
Yeah, those initial subtle signs are very Delulu, right? There are a lot of things that are hiding in those things, but it is also first clues. How does an energy make itself known based on how it's known you so far? Sometimes it truly is a game of chess with some energies because they have intentions, but we can't see the full intention until they get to show themselves. I don't know. What do you think about that, Kristin?
No, I think that's very true. And moving into a new house, um, where you don't have that connection yet, where you haven't figured out, am I crazy or is this something that's real, that's actually happening? And so I kind of want to ask, what was the escalating incident that made you realize this was a genuine spiritual event?
So it was on the fourth night, and I was dead asleep in my room. I had finally gotten into my room, got a bed in there. I was very excited, but I was out cold, middle of the night, and I woke up hearing a woman's voice, and it was so close to me that I could almost feel her breath on my skin, like my ear and my neck area, and it was just bone chilling. And it woke me up from this dead of sleep. And I heard her whisper to me, own. And I got so frightened. It immediately filled me with fear and dread. And so we had hung a picture on the wall. Um, and all of a sudden, it had fallen down onto the ground. And it was up there pretty good. Like, there was no way that that thing was coming down without force. And it was face down on the ground. And that was one of the first moments where I realized that I wasn't dealing with something coincidental. this wasn't a coincidence. This was the first time that I had heard a voice. Like, I can make up excuses for the electric issues where I thought the lights were turning on and off because of wiring. There was no getting around this. I heard that voice. This was tangible. I could hear it. I could feel it. This was that moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I must really actually be going crazy because now I'm hearing and feeling stuff and stuff is flying off the walls. And in my head, I knew that I was trying to blame it on me being crazy, but deep down I knew that this was something way bigger than I had ever dealt with before, and it was just bone chilling to my core.
And you know, that word own is like the illusion that the devil uses as an authority figure. So that must have been really terrified, like really terrifying, realizing that the unknown could happen at any moment, especially the vulnerability of when you're asleep.
Well, yeah, it's when you're least expecting anything, and just the fact that it hit me out of nowhere. And I sleep through freight trains, I sleep through planes and phone calls and everything. And the fact that that whisper just jolted me awake, and instantly I had that fear, it was something crazy.
I mean, truly to me, ladies, that definitely is an organized energy attack. We all can agree with that. It is definitely that plot that you are feeling that thick, dense energy. So I do have to ask, where and were there any patterns like times of day seeming to trigger the activity itself? Can you talk about that, Brianna?
Oh, for sure. I noticed it most when I was alone. So there would be many times where I would get home really late from work and the whole house would be asleep. Parents would be in bed. My cousin would be asleep. So I was the only one awake in the house. And as I was walking in, I feel like those times where I was awake and the whole house was sleeping, it just seemed like I was constantly being attacked. Like, and in my vulnerable states of being like tired or drained from the day. And it just seemed like it was preying on me when I was at my weakest points. I have a chronic illness, so there are days where I am not able to do the things that I would normally do. And those days amped up 100%. So anytime that I was alone in the house, or when I was super tired, or when I wasn't able to physically take care of myself, I feel like that's when it got the absolute worst. And it was just continual taunting.
Yeah, the devil will not think twice when you are down and also alone. That is absolutely where he wants you to be. It's a bait system. And truly, I do apologize to you because nobody should be going through something like that, especially being by yourself in a home. That's a very vulnerable space, isn't it?
Yeah, like I went from a space that I felt so safe and comfortable in, and I wanted to make this new house that same kind of space. I'm a person that really thrives when I feel comfortable. I need my own space. I need that space to feel like mine, and it seemed like they were just continually trying to take that from me.
If this episode resonates with you, please comment, like, and subscribe now. All of the links to connect with us are in the description below. Thank you.
You know, Brianna, I think that would be very frustrating to not have the moment to build yourself up and give yourself that space. And so I applaud you for going through all of this. Were there any incidents tied to like a specific mood, weather, or did it target one person?
So I realized that it really started just happening to me. I felt targeted. Like when I walked into my house, I just felt like I had this target on my back and most of the time, even on my front. I felt like I could never escape this. And I feel like it was very tied to my mental state. And even from the beginning, right, like right when we started moving in, there wasn't a whole lot of time for me to take care of my personal mental health. And I always need to set aside time. Like I've learned that I need to set aside time for myself to read a book, play a musical instrument, or just really do something that I truly enjoy that helps me regroup, recoup, and just help myself to be in a healthy mental state. And when we were busy moving stuff from room to, okay, well, this bed is going to go here, and we should put this couch here, and oh, where should we put this? There wasn't a whole lot of time to really take that time that I needed for myself. And so it made it really hard to keep myself healthy, and they preyed on that. They used that against me and used me as a almost a pawn. They were basically bullying me, and not having that time for myself made me feel weak. And to them, me feeling weak was the worst thing possible because it gave them everything that they wanted. I was weak in that point.
Yeah, and that's how the devil knows how to get under your skin, because when they can take that self-fulfillment away from you, your your confidence starts to dive.
Now, Kristin, thank you so much for pointing that out. I can't agree more. And I'll tell you what, Brianna, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Situational wise, can you walk me through one night that still replays in your head, step by step? What do you see, hear, and feel? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I was out on my front porch, which has beautiful lights on it, very well lit. I can pretty much see my whole entire front yard from it. And I was looking towards those rows of trees, and it's the double layer of trees. And suddenly I felt this overwhelming, just total consuming, crushing sense of low self-worth and just like everything in my body, like all my energy was being stolen. And I felt like the shell of a human. Like I felt like all of me was being taken away from me. I didn't have my personality. I didn't have my humor. I didn't have all the things that make myself myself. And I saw a quick dark shadow pass me, and then I heard a voice. And this voice was different than the one that I had heard before. It was not a woman's, it was a male voice. And it said, "Step in line." And just, it was the same type of fear that I had had when I heard the other words spoken to me. It was absolutely terrifying. Like I was sitting there trembling because once again I felt the breath on the back of my neck, and it was almost like it was growled to me, but not so much in an animal like growl. It was more of a very low tone of an angry male voice. Like it was very angry, and it seemed like it was very angry with me.
Wow, I'm so sorry that you've had to go through that. I could only imagine the whooshing of panic just based off of the experiences that I've personally had. And I'll tell you what, going into someone's personal space to get that close, to be that intimidating, it's never going to make anyone feel safe. It is definitely targeted, it is strategic, but it truly is a will of control. What would you have to say to that, Kristin?
No, I think that's very true, and then mix in the emotion of Now you're moving into this new home that you think, you don't know what's going on with it. You've heard stories, but you don't have, like I said before, you don't have the relation to it yet. And so that can add a scary element to it. Brianna, though, did anyone else in the house notice spiritual activity before you?
So I kept quiet for quite a long, long time about all the stuff that I was dealing with because, like I mentioned before, I didn't believe in any of this. I didn't think that any of this was real. I thought I was crazy. I didn't think that any of this could actually happen. And finally, one day, I confided in my cousin who lives right across the hall from me. And I went to her and I said, I know I'm gonna sound crazy. I know this is so far-fetched, but I need you to hear me because I've been struggling with this so much in the last couple weeks. And I told her about the footsteps I would hear. I told her about the voices. I told her about the lights. I told her about things moving around. And she looked at me and she goes, That's been happening to you too? And she almost said it in a sense where she was like okay with it and she wasn't really as freaked out as I was, which I was kind of mad at her about. I was like, so this stuff has been happening to you too, and you're just not going to say anything about it? What the heck? And but then I realized that she wasn't dealing with as much stuff as I was. She wasn't dealing with the voices. She just heard a couple footsteps and she goes, "Ah, I thought it was you." Or I thought it was someone else. And she's like, well, the wiring's pretty old. But so she believed me to a point, to an extent, but I tried to have the same conversation with my parents that were living in the house, and my dad was not having any part of that. He was like, Brianna, this is not happening. My mom looked at me and said, Yep, Brianna, you're just really tired all the time. It's okay. This isn't actually happening. It's a beautiful house. Everything's okay. You're safe. Nothing can come and get you. You're just fine. And so it was kind of almost like all of them were dismissing what I was going through and how I was feeling.
Yeah, you can sense the deflating energy around that you have when you express those feelings. And that must have gave you a feeling where you kind of felt alone. And so it really goes to show the awakening that you were having. Steph, I know you have a question that's kind of related to that. So go ahead.
Yeah, what I was going to say is like the psychological toll based off of the words that you're coming off of, living in a state of conflict, that obviously is intense. It's not, it must have been intense. It is intense. And so I do have to ask, do you feel like the house changed you in any way? Because obviously, these polls and these feelings and different stuff, I want you to kind of take a moment and, open up about that. Did it change you? Okay.
Overall, I mean, we just hit the 1 year mark of me living in that house, and I truly feel like I am a completely different person. And because of that house, I had to start my own spiritual journey. I learned a lot in the last year about myself. When I moved in there, I was a selfish person who was ignorant to a lot of things that was going around me. Um, and I realized that I wasn't opening my eyes. I only knew what I knew. I didn't really have any interest in learning a whole lot about anything for that fact. And I realized through this journey and through this process that I can't just look at things at how they are. I have to read between the lines. I have to, okay, someone said this, but what do they really mean? I'm constantly digging deeper into my emotions, how everyone else's emotions play into the fact of what they're doing. It really opened my eyes and changed my perspective on the world. I realized that the spiritual fight is not just some make-believe theoretical situation. It's a major pivot in every journey that we will go on as human beings. And I learned that I had to really fight for my inner peace, and I had to fight a lot to be okay with myself. And I feel like that fight is never truly over. But if I would have never moved to this house, I wouldn't have changed in the ways that I have, and I would not be the person that I am today.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful awakening story. A major pivot like that changed your reality completely. It allowed you to understand that you sometimes have to be careful to be vulnerable because things do want to take your peace. Things do want to change your entire perception of reality because of control, right? And so it is such a beautiful thing to realize how you can fight in a new type of characteristic way that is open to you. You've never had an encounter with it, but it's so monumental. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%, 1,000%, because I had never dealt with anything like this before. And I have had some mental health struggles in the past, and I never really dealt with them. I never faced it. I never really truly accepted it. And this really changed me in a way. It almost grabbed me and shook me awake and was like, Brianna, let's go. You're gonna have to deal with this. You have to fight for yourself and you have to find your strength because right now you don't have that. And we need to make sure that you learn how to have your strength.
You know, Brianna, I just want to take a moment to tell you I am incredibly proud of you and how far you've come and how far you've grown and how much you have pushed yourself. I know that through this, I was terrified and I didn't even have to live in the house. Okay. So I need to ask you, how did people outside of your home react when you moved into this house?
Oh, this is the good one. Um, so it kind of takes a little bit to get into because when I first moved into town, I didn't know a single person. And I was like, how am I going to meet someone in this town without going like door to door? And I was like, I'm not doing that. But we have this bar in town right on Main Street. And I was like, aha, here's an idea. Presented it to my mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to go work at the local bar. And she goes, okay, why? And I'm like, because no one can hate the person behind the bar. And if you're there, you get to learn everybody, who everybody is. You get to meet everybody. You'll make friends. It'll be great. So the first couple days I was there, well, the first couple weeks I was there, um, everyone would say, oh, you're new to town. I don't know who you are. Do you live around here? Where are you from? And I was so proud that I moved into the house that I did. And I would tell them, "Oh, I live in the Moore house, in the old Moore house." And immediately their whole expression would change and they're like, "You've got to be joking me, right? Like, you don't actually live there, do you?" And I go, "Yeah, absolutely I do." And they were like, "Oh, well, that's the haunted mansion. You know that, right?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" So they would, I would have people telling me stories every single day of experiences that they have had. And it infuriated me at times because they would joke about this. They would joke about my like house. And I knew what experiences that I was going through. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, this is what I have to go home to. You are joking about this, calling it a haunted mansion, and that's my home. I have to go home to that every night. I deal with so many different things on so many different levels, not just with myself, but I felt like my house was alive most of the times. I didn't have control over the house. I didn't know what was going on. I was so confused all the time. And people were just, oh, are your ghosts acting all funny? Are your ghosts staying in line? And it just really sent me through a loop because the only person that actually sat down and listened to me was my next door neighbor. And she said to me, Brianna, I know everybody thinks I'm crazy, and I know that you think I'm crazy, but I know that you are not crazy. I know the house that you're living in, and I have seen things in that house, and I just want to let you know that you're not alone. And she actually gifted me a piece of Palo Santo. And at this point, Kristin had been in her spiritual journey. I had kind of started my own. And so I said, oh my goodness, I know what this is. And so I swear, like every day for a month, I was in my bedroom getting that Palo Santo out. I was Palo Santoing everything. And I was whipping that thing around, and I needed my own space. I was so in, like, in it, that no one could touch my room. That was off limits. But I mean, while I was very thorough in Palo Santoing my room, I kind of left out my bathroom, which ended up being a problem later, but we'll get to that at a later time. Uh, but yeah, she was the only person other than Kristin and Steph later in our journey that actually knew what was going on, believed me, and was there to listen to me no matter what and no matter when.
Yeah, with all of the stories that people were telling you, you can tell that it takes a toll on your energy. And I'm sure it felt really good to have someone on your side that was your next door neighbor supporting you, because on the outside, it's not a normal perspective to be experiencing these things. But I do remember when we brought Steph into it that it really took a turn.
One thing I do have to say about my next door neighbor, it was funny because we were at this point in my spiritual journey, I was finally learning how to tap in. And I would be on the phone with Kristin and I would say, all right, Kristin, are you ready? And she's like, yeah, Brianna, let's do this. We got this. And so we would try and tap in and speak to people. And there was a couple times where we got a couple names and we were super excited. We're like, oh my gosh, this is so fun because the people that we were meeting were nice. We're like, oh my gosh, wow, wait, maybe this isn't all bad. This could be really good. Oh, it's fine. I'm not scared of these ones. It's okay. And I reached out to my neighbor and I told them the names of the spirits that we were trying to connect with. And she's like, "Oh, I knew that person when they were alive. Like, that hasn't been so far in the past." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this is so exciting." And so I would text her, like, "This is what they said was their favorite color." And she goes, "Oh no, honey, that's not it. Nope, never in a million years." And so we were finding out real quick because of her help that there was something playing with not only me, but also Kristin in the house. And she was like our backbone in finding out some of the things that we were finding out. Like she was our truth for some of these things, which really helped us get through a lot of tricky times and a lot of tricky conversations.
I mean, you have to admit, it takes a lot of courage to be able to communicate with spirits and they're communicating right back. The question is where is the intention, right? And it does spark a very phenomenal interest into us to definitely get to know and understand why things are not connecting. And I know, obviously, within the circumstances of our story, is you had a lot of courage to dig into some history about the land yourself. And so, basically, what led you to begin researching your property? And what did you hope to find and or gain in regards to connections? Isabella had the connection with the rows of trees, different types of things like that. Go ahead and take a second and share that with us.
Yeah, so that same neighbor, she really helped me out with giving me some more information on the house. But ever since I lived in that town, I had this overwhelming urge where I had to go to the cemetery. and how the rows of trees led to the cemetery. And I just felt this pull to that area. And I was desperate to find anything that explained why this land felt like a spiritual trap, or I was so desperate by this time to know what was going on that I was doing anything and everything. And I was trying to read everything that I possibly could. But that's when I started realizing that these history books that I got from my neighbor, none of them were aligning. Like I would read one book and it would say that the Moors had two children, and then I would read another one and it was that they had one child, and then I would read another one and the years wouldn't align, and this happened and but this didn't happen, and then you'd read another one and you would see, oh, but this actually did happen. So nothing was connecting ever. And that was kind of hard to kind of understand, because these are supposed to be books that have the history, but nothing was actually correct, or no one knew the truth.
It is difficult to fact check in regards to situations where we already feel we're losing it a little bit, but it's kind of right in our faces, you know what I mean? And I know those rows of trees got brought up by Isabella. So the fact that your neighbor introduced that specifically and just kind of the connection to the cemetery and everything is a deep realization. I mean, it's not a coincidence. It's just the fact that the books aren't aligning to exactly accurate information. You knew that fueled quite literally a different kind of drive in you. Could you say?
Oh, for sure. It like awakened a almost like a primal instinct that I didn't even know that I had. It was just like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this constantly. It almost consumed me for a little bit. And I remember calling Kristen, I'm like, hey, I found this, I found this. Oh, I felt like this today. This is what happened. Kristen was there through the thick of it for a really long time. I remember there would be times where I would just call her and I'd say, "Hey, I'm on my way home, but I can't walk in the house. Will you just stay on the phone with me?" So she got to deal with it firsthand a lot of the time. And I kind of pushed her into that, well, pulled her into that with me. But it really just, going back to the trees, it just opened me up to this whole other feeling that I didn't know I was capable of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that for sure. Do you have anything to say, Kristen?
Yeah, I think with all of these, what most people would call a coincidence, it really kind of leads into almost like a movie like scene, right? Because you're getting all of these clues and all of a sudden you're feeling like nothing is matching up. So if your story turned into a movie, what scene would be the climax?
Well, first of all, I just want to touch base on what genre that would be, and it's definitely horror. Um, I think that the probably the climax, the scene that would be, oh my gosh, is I just had this overwhelming urge to get out of bed one night. It was late, but I hadn't fallen asleep yet, and I just got this pull, like something telling me, get out of bed right now. So I get up, and as you walk out of my bedroom door, you take a right, and we have split staircases. And there's one that goes down to the main level, and there's one that splits up to the third level. And so there's a platform in between the second and third level. And I looked to my right and I saw the platform, and there was, probably from the knees down, I saw of a man in dress pants and dress shoes, and it shook me to my core. I was terrified. I saw it, and I want to say the dress pants were like tan or a deep dark gray, but it wasn't necessarily about me seeing colors. It was more so about me seeing the feet. They were there. They were watching me. There it was. in that moment, that's what was happening. And I don't think I've ever moved that fast in my life. I panicked. Freaked out, ran into my bedroom as quick as I could, and I pulled all the blankets over my head like a scared little 2-year-old because I was just so terrified. And I remember being under my blankets, tucked under there, and I didn't leave for like 12 hours. Like I was stuck there. I was fully committed to I'm staying here for the rest of my life. I'm scared. I'm not taking my head out of these covers. Not happening. I remember getting on the phone with my cousin, and she had come along, with this journey. I kept on sharing more and more stuff that was happening, and she believed more and more. And so I was like, I really just need you to walk out there, and I need you to tell me if there's anything that's going to get me, because I cannot leave my bed right now, and I might need you to hold my hand. And she's like, okay, okay, I'm on my way. So she walked out and she goes, yeah, looks like the coast is clear. Okay, we're good. And so she actually walked me out of the house that day because I was terrified.
You know, that feeling of wanting to crawl out of your skin, that's what I get from that. The absolute intimidation of seeing that in the middle of the night while you just had this gut feeling to get out of bed. You can't even describe that.
I do feel like there's one other like huge moment for me that like that's probably the scaredest I've ever been. However, there was one other moment. I was home alone. And of course, we know that they like to get me when I'm alone. Um, I was just doing my thing, doing some laundry. I had made it back into my bedroom. And they know that that's my safe space, so they always want to lure me out. It was that, I swear that Palo Santo was working. So that's why they had to get me out of my room. But I heard in my mother's voice, "Hey, Brianna, can you come and help me?" And right then and there, ran immediately out of my house. Done. I called my mom, and because I knew she was out of the house. I knew she was in town doing some grocery shopping, had just been on the phone with her like 2 or 3 minutes prior, and it was her voice. And I was done. I was not having any part of that. And oof, duh. So I would definitely say that those two moments, I would say that the feet on the stairway is probably the number one, but that one's a close, close second.
You know, the chill when you just said that about your mom saying that, or what you thought was your mom when you were home, that gives me the chills. Steph, did you feel anything from that?
Oh, absolutely, guys. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, that's mimicking. Mimicking is a type of spiritual conduct where something can use voices or sounds that you recognize to lure. It is a very powerful energy for something to carry. And I can't agree more, Brie. I mean, it does give a really rippling effect coming from you, especially because it's so visual. People who are like me and Kristin, it becomes extremely visual when people have gone through crazy circumstances, you know? So I'm sure, kind of leading to my next question, is obviously there's probably been moments where you go, get me out of this house. And maybe you don't have the full wanting of staying in this house forever. So my question to you is, if you could tell a future homeowner one thing before they moved into this house, what would it be?
I think what best sums it up is two words: be prepared. Because the journey that this house will take you on is absolutely wild. And I wouldn't change any of it for the life of me. I promise. Like, it has been the most terrifying, but also most rewarding experience in my life. And whoever is in that house next, if there's another owner at some point, they need to be prepared for what is going to happen because whether it be good or bad, oh, there's stuff that happens.
1,000%. I mean, people have to be prepared if they don't know these things. Like, you went through that same exact thing. You came into this house with no experience, hardly at all. And to be able to give somebody else that same exact advice, it is very interesting because it really pulls me into your neighbors a little bit, because your neighbors have talked to you and been like, are you sure? Are you ready for that? Are you prepared? It's like you're giving kind of that same advice. And truthfully, that's only by experience. Someone who's going to meet that the first time is going to go, what do you mean be prepared? No, you have to engulf the experience when spirits are around, especially if it's a high ground, right?
Oh, yeah, and there really is no way to prepare yourself to actually deal with it until you're dealing with it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's just you don't know until you know. And like I said, I love that house. I love where I am. I love where I live. But oh man, it sends you for a loop, and the next people better be prepared for the life lessons and journey that it's going to give you.
Absolutely, for sure. And thank you so much for touching on that, because I'm sure it helps a lot of other people who have energetic households that if they ever move somewhere, maybe considering before someone moves in there to give them a little bit of background. But what do you think, Kristin?
No, absolutely. It's kind of like walking into this podcast and not realizing what we're trying to do. Like the awakening we're trying to have people have, and I think it ended in such a beautiful way, and there's there's really no words for it, in all honesty. There's not, because you've learned a lot and you've grown a lot, and now you can look back at it and go, wow, that actually happened. So I think we're ready to bring this back to Isabella and the day she agreed to be a hero. Brianna, are you ready to talk about collapsing the energies that loom over your head?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
The spiritual battle was won, but the real world investigation starts. Now we band together to finish the fight. Brianna, thank you for your courage and for sharing your story with our listeners. This conversation is the defining moment of our next steps, where the things we uncovered start relating to the real world and how we were able to pull together this house and the clearing to unroot the trauma of Brianna's house.
We had the physical landmarker, the historical truth, and the spiritual intelligence. Next week, we will discuss episode 4, the reckoning phase, where we confront the cult leader's influence and finalize the spiritual liberation of the land and the remaining victimized souls.
We'll share our strategy and the new specific spiritual security protocols we've initiated to band together and prepare for this massive spiritual undertaking.
If this episode resonates with you, please like and subscribe now. You can also connect with us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Links in the description below. You can also visit us via our website at www.transcendencemagnetized.com in the description below. Please submit your paranormal stories on our website to have a chance to be featured on our next latest episodes. Use the link in the description below.
Until next time, keep following the whispers.